Hey guys, hope you're doing well on the challenge this week. As you're getting into your second week, hope things are making an impact for you. That you're off to a good start. I wanted to use this video to answer just a couple questions that came in kind of across the last week or so that I thought were all good. They're all nutrition related. I'm not going to go crazy in depth, but I do just want to give you some food for thought because these are three that honestly probably affect all of us. So here's some good nuggets on these three topics. The three questions were, how much water should someone actually drink? The second one is, how much vitamin D should someone actually take as a supplement? And then number three, how much caffeine is too much caffeine? So great questions, by the way. I'm not going to go exhaustive in my answer. If you have questions, you can always ask more, especially if they're related to these. But let's break that down. Number one, with water. How much water should someone actually drink? The answer is yes, but you got to understand a few things. That depends on, well, who are we talking about? Is it a 260 pound, NFL linebacker that is in humid temperatures and they're doing 2-a-day workouts? Because a gallon a day isn't going to cover it. Okay. Or are we talking about, sedentary lifestyle of average health and they're not moving too much and they have an okay diet, but they mostly work at a computer and don't work out a lot? Well, those are other health issues, but as far as water goes, gallon's probably fine. Okay. So a good general guidelines, I kind of start with these assumptions. Number one, you need to assume you're probably not getting enough, because that's true for vast majority of people, even people that work out and eat well and sleep well. Number two, you need to understand that this time of year, specifically in the PNW, as temperatures do get a little bit colder and days get shorter, we tend to underdrink. When it's summer and it's hot and it's obvious, it's a little bit more easy to see like, well, I should keep drinking water. We tend to kind of slip this time of year. And then last but not least is start with getting to a good baseline. And if I was to throw a general one out there, I would say with this is start with, pick a number like 100 ounces or pick a gallon and start there and get that consistently. And then start asking yourself, okay, should I try and increase this from here, or do I feel great? Is my pee clear? Am I getting any cramps? Am I getting any headaches? Do I feel like I'm hydrated enough during workouts? Am I urinating frequently? All of those things. Like, look at those markers and just kind of decide. But a good one to start with is like pick an easy baseline to hit. A gallon. Pick that. Okay. If that's not it, then pick like what's your lean mass and get that in ounces of water a day. That's usually what I shoot for. This time of year, working out in the morning, I'm usually doing some extra meters. I'm pretty active throughout most of my day. I'm right now trying to burn 2,000 calories a day during each of the weekdays. So my water's up. I'm up to like 200 ounces a day when normally I'm probably around like 150. So because of increased activity, I'm having to be really intentional, drink more water. Normally that's not a problem for me. This time of year, it's a little bit colder, even though the sun's out right now, which I'm super thankful for. It's just more intentionality with it, where I know I perform better, sleep better, I digest food better, all of those things if I stay hydrated optimally. So keep that in mind, set a benchmark, and see if you need to go up from there. The second question that came in about vitamin D. How much vitamin D should someone take as a supplement? The answer is it depends. Okay. No surprise. That's how most answers should be in anything related to health and fitness. But it depends on a few things. If you were to ask a doctor or read a, supplement facts or Google this, most answers are going to say 2,000 units a day, but that depends. The only way to know for sure is to actually do blood work, which I do on average about every 6 to 9 months. I do blood work to kind of see where I'm at. I like actually knowing, and I use the deacons at Inland Wellness and Vitality. They literally sit down with me, look at my blood work, and go line by line through all of my markers. And I really like doing that because I want to know, like, where am I at? Am I under on some stuff? Am I over on some stuff? How's all of my health markers looking? What could I be doing better? What's gotten better? What's gotten worse? I like doing that because the only way to know is to actually measure it, and the best way to measure it is blood work. So I would suggest, if you've never done that, I think it's worth every penny because in my mind, I'm like, great example. A handful of years ago, I did that with a doc. I was really, really low on certain things, one of them being vitamin D. I supplemented that. I supplemented, some DHEA, some other things. I recognize, I tend to respond kind of poorly when I eat this type of food. I started changing some things that way, and I felt tremendously better. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I just spent a couple $100 or whatever it was on that blood work. I made a couple changes. I spent a little bit on supplements, and now all of a sudden I'm like, I'm performing better, working better. I'm more cognitive. I feel healthier. I'm sleeping better. And in my mind, I'm like, I just made all of that back very quickly because I now perform way better at work. So that's how my mind works. Maybe yours does the same way. I'm like, that's a good investment that'll have a very quick ROI. So food for thought. I really think it's great getting with a doc and actually getting that dialed in. And I think the Deacons do a great job, by the way, if you're looking for a suggestion. Hit them up, Inland Wellness and Vitality. Pete is a gym member and a great dude and really knows his stuff. So they can do that for you. But that's the only way to tell for sure is to do blood work. With that being said, you can make an assumption that you're low. And here's why. Number one, most Americans are. Number two, you live in the Pacific Northwest where damn near everybody is low on vitamin D because of where we're positioned in relationship to, the sun and where we're located on this big thing known as the globe. And then number three is the seasons changing. As we have obviously lost summer and we're deep into fall, our days are much shorter. We aren't getting as much sunlight. We aren't getting as much exposure. It's colder out. It's darker out. All of those factors, we tend to go down in vitamin D, and we don't tend to really get much vitamin D, if any, from our diets. It's something we tend to have to supplement with. So there you go. If you're looking for a benchmark, 2,000 units a day, I think for someone in the PNW this time of year, I would probably say start at 5,000 and take that for a month and see if you can feel and notice a difference. And then last but not least, this happens all the time when people start supplementing with vitamin D. Number one, talk to a doctor and get blood work. But number two, if you are going to take some suggested, this is not medical advice, but just some tips from your coach, what a lot of people do is this. They'll think that they're low. They'll realize they're low on vitamin D. They'll take it for a month. They'll be like, oh my God, I feel so much better. And then they'll stop taking it. I'm like, well, dum-dum, the reason you feel better is you were taking it. So keep taking it. Okay. And don't just stop taking it because you felt better. The reason you're feeling better is because you're taking it. So keep taking it. There you go. And last but not least, last question that came in is on caffeine. Someone asked, how much caffeine per day is too much? And the answer, no surprise, is it depends. Okay. Now, number one, you don't need to take caffeine. You can fully function as a human without it. But some people might say, well, you don't know my coffee addiction, so shut up. I'm going to tune you out. But I would say this, with caffeine, if you were to Google this or ask a doc, most suggested guidelines are around 200 milligrams a day or less for fully grown, fully functioning adults. Use that as a rough guideline. Some people are, more caffeine sensitive, some are less. Some things to keep in mind. Number one, blood work's a great thing to look at, especially when it comes to caffeine consumption. If you notice that your cortisol is all off or your testosterone levels are all off, caffeine can have a very big negative impact on some of that. We overuse caffeine in our culture. I will definitely stand by that statement in a number of ways. Number one, we drink absorbent amounts in very short periods of time. Caffeine tends to do better if you drink small amounts a little more regularly, like think sipping on something over the course of an hour or two. That's a much healthier way to take on that type of nervous system stimulant. But, think how many people that are like, well, dude, I just had a 30-ounce mocha frappa bullshit from Starbucks that had 4 espresso shots in it, and I downed it in like 30 seconds. Now I feel freaking wired, and then I crash. Well, yeah, dude, you're not supposed to shock your heart that fast with caffeine. So slow it down a little bit and stretch it out over a longer period of time. Another tip that I would throw out there is this. If you are getting to a point where you're noticing you're becoming highly dependent on caffeine, just be cautious with knowing that tends to go pretty bad pretty quickly. Some tips I would give out is this. Try and take a minimal amount. But notice that caffeine is meant to just be an enhancement. It's not meant to be like your lifeline to get you out of bed or get you through a workout or get you through your workday. You got to look at all those other factors that come to energy. Number one, how you sleeping? What's your diet look like? How's your hydration? How are your workouts going? Like doing those things that can keep you healthy and moving and give you more energy, you got to have those dialed. Those matter so much more. And if those things are in check and you're like, all right, so I do want to take caffeine once in a while with that. I'm not saying that's wrong. I do. But I also know that on this challenge, I've cut mine way back, like more than in half, and I'm doing fine. A little bit of headaches first few days, made sure I drank enough water, but I'm taking way less. I'm making sure that I'm drinking it slowly. I'm making sure that I'm not using it as a crutch, making sure I'm sleeping well, my diet's better, hydration's good, stress is getting balanced, all those things. You can't just use caffeine as a crutch forever, because that really leads to just a train wreck of a lot of health issues. So there's some fun tips for the day. Make sure you're getting enough water. Make sure you're in check with your vitamin D if you need to be, and just be cautious, but use appropriately when it comes to caffeine. So love you guys. Hope you have a great week. Enjoy today's sunshine.